News Radio 840 WHAS coming up on today's Louisville Real Estate Show. One buyer spent weeks house hunting before learning she couldn't afford the homes she loved. Another got pre-qualified online in 4 minutes, only to find out that sellers didn't take it seriously. Plus, what happens when a seller hides flooding or paints over water damage before listing a home, and why you need to blur your home online as soon as possible. Everybody, Bob Sokoler, owner of the Sokoler team at simpler.realestate. Thank you for joining us this morning. And with us, a great group of people. Let me tell you, Randy Rocky is off today, and in his place, Josh Martin, who is with Swan Financial. You can reach Josh for your questions with regards to home loans at 270-799-3142. Also here, one of our regulars, Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Office. Some problems just can't be solved with duct tape. Call Chuck Crosby, real estate, law, wills, estate planning, of course, closings. He is the calm, experienced professional voice that you want before things get complicated. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, I'd love to help you. No home too big, no home too small. And of course, I work in Louisville, surrounding counties, southern Indiana. If I can't get your home under contract within 59 days, I'll offer to buy it. We do a good job. We don't have to buy them because we get them sold. You can reach me anytime on my cell phone, area code 502-376-5483. That's 502-376-LIVE. Or go to bobsellslouisville.com and click on the form and fill it out. And then, of course, if you want a free, no obligation estimate of what your home is worth, it's computerized, it's instant. Go to wesellouisville.com and click on the top of the page. All right, Chuck Crosby, Crosby Law Office. We'll start off with you. Amelia emailed us after a friend's deal fell apart because the seller hadn't disclosed ongoing flooding in the basement, and her friend felt that she had no recourse but to get out of it. So really the question here is, Chuck, what are sellers legally required to disclose when selling a home? And what happens to a seller who knowingly withholds information about a material defect? I think the second part of that question is important. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, that's if you don't let them know about a material defect, that's misrepresentation, and that kind of thing is always going to come back to haunt you. I mean, when a buyer buys the house, they're going to be living in it. They're going to have the opportunity to see all the things going on. So I don't know why people do it. But to answer the question, what do you disclose? Anything relevant. At all. The form is extremely lengthy and gives
Detailed.
you plenty. Yeah, very detailed.
Very
gives you
detailed.
lots of opportunity to give nuances. Yes, the basement leaked in whatever year we had it fixed and hasn't leaked since. Okay, lots of places. Hiding it is just not going to solve anything. And in this case, obviously they found out there was misrepresentation, they're entitled to get their money back. And with something deliberate and flagrant, and I don't know that that's the case here, but if it is deliberate, flagrant, I'm sure that you could also get some other things like costs. Now, realtors might have a little more they could go for, but the cost of the home inspection on things that you did to find the issue, I think that would be a fair target. Now, getting hypothetical damages like, oh, we've wasted all our time doing this, that, and the other thing, that's never going to fly. It's got to be a real number, a real bill that you paid.
And when you say get your money back, you're not talking about the money for the house.
No,
You're talking about repairs of the items that were.
Well, that's it. That's if you buy the house and you find these issues. I was dealing with this question where they pulled the plug on it prior to.
Got it.
So in something like that, getting the home inspection, whoever found the issue, I'm pretty sure you could go and get the fees that you were charged for that. Now, if you buy the house and you find out that this is the case, well, I always say go ahead and get it fixed. That's how you determine what your damages are, and you can only sue for real damages. You can't say, oh, hey, I can't sleep at night now because I'm afraid it's whatever. It's got to be for real damages, having it repaired, anything that was damaged because of it. And yeah, that's an ongoing thing. If I buy the house and you didn't tell me the basement leaked and you apparently here they tried to cover it up. Yeah. I'm the lawyer in me is salivating
Yeah,
right
I can
now.
see it. Yeah. By the way, we mentioned see it because you can see it, folks. You can see Chuck salivating if you really want this early in the
Oh,
morning. Yeah, he's kidding, of course, but you can, I'm not. You can see the show as well as hear it by going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our YouTube channel. And also a reminder, before you hire anybody, you want to make sure that you check their reviews. And we've made that easy to check our reviews if you'd like us to come over and help you get your home on the market and sold or buy a house through us as our team. You can go to LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleGoogle.com. All right, Josh, over to you. Again, Josh in for Randy Rocky today. Samantha emailed us after spending 3 weeks touring homes on Zillow before ever talking to a lender, then discovered she couldn't afford a single house that she's bookmarked. Take note, first time homebuyers. What is, she's asking, the very first financial step for a buyer, and what should they do before they even start looking at homes? And why does that order that you do things matter so much?
She definitely needs to um, start out with working on getting a pre-approval. Do the application, get the documents into your lender, let them go over it, and give you an idea of what you can afford. What they get you pre-approved for, and it's really important because if you're looking at houses and don't have any idea of what you can afford, you may find a house that's out of your price range that you fall in love with, and then if you put an offer in on it and then you go to get your financing taken care of and you find out you can't afford it, then you've kind of jumped the gun, and your realtor's not going to be happy, sellers aren't going to be happy. So you definitely want to get pre-approved before you start looking at homes.
Yeah, that's a really important point because, as you say, you could have real problems if you do it the other way, where you start looking, as you've already discovered, in finding homes and not realizing that you can't afford them.
Now, I usually see the realtors are requiring that sort of thing before they start taking people out, don't they?
In many cases, though, I'll tell you something that's interesting. Zillow, we're one of these Zillow flex teams, which means
Hmm.
we get a higher level. Anyway, the bottom line is where I'm going with this is that Zillow says don't ask a buyer if they've been pre-approved on the phone. Wait till you get in person, talk to them, get an understanding of what they're looking for, and then work that into the conversation.
I
Because
gotcha.
so a lot of agents are not asking, are you pre-approved right up front? Because it puts a speed bump in front of being able to get that person into the home. Because let's face it, what they really want is get into the home and see it. So
Yeah.
interesting. It's a little different psychology from
Yeah,
Zillow.
I get FISBOs every now and again asking for contracts, and I'll always, get the information as to where they're approved, where the contract needs to go. And last few I've gotten are like, oh, I haven't got a loan yet. It's like, oh, how do you know you can afford this then?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. A reminder that you can watch some of the people I've worked with in the past years at their closing, and some of them were in Chuck Crosby's office. You can go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com, LouisvilleSellersTalk.com, and hear what people have to say about our Sokoler team and me. Over to Chuck Crosby. Speaking of him, Joshua sent this in after touring a home and noticing fresh paint covering what looked like water stains. He started wondering maybe the sellers are hiding something. He says if a seller appears to have covered up a defect before the listing the home, he says, does that change their legal liability? And then what can buyers do to suspect something being concealed? What do they do if they suspect it? Those
Well,
two good questions. Yeah.
yeah, kind of the first thing I think about is, well, everybody freshens up their house a bit before they think about selling it. I mean, before you even talk to a realtor, oh, hey, let's sell this place. So I don't know that some fresh paint is automatically something that would even remotely be a legal issue. However, if someone is trying to cover something up, if someone is trying to misrepresent or deceive, well, that's something that would show a certain intent, which is always something you want to show in court. So while it may not at the front end be an issue, at the back end, if you have the issue and you go back and you find that, that's really good evidence.
So let's back into the other question, which was, what do you do if you're touring a home and you suspect somebody's trying
Ask.
to? And maybe you move away from that home, but do you have, I think the intent of that question was, do you notify authorities that there's something that's happening
Oh,
there?
no.
We don't get involved in that,
Yeah,
right?
not
Yeah.
who would you tell?
Yeah. Who would listen?
Who
Yeah.
are you going to call?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ghostbusters aren't on this job. But no, because you don't know what's going on. Like I said, you sell a house, you go and you freshen it up a bit, maybe some spring cleaning. I've been known to freshen up the paint on my walls occasionally, without nefarious intent. However, there's nobody to call, and B, you don't really know. And do you really, even if there was somebody to call, do you really want to, take a guess and say, hey, this person might be trying to do something, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. By the way, someone had once recently asked me, we were touring their home, they wanted to list it and said, hey, I'm thinking of painting the floor of the basement to cover up all this stuff. I said, that's not a good idea because that shows intent to really
Yeah.
mislead somebody.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
if you're trying to mislead someone,
yeah.
this is what you would do. But having done that doesn't mean that you're trying to mislead.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's why it doesn't mean anything on the front end, but on the back end, it might very well.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, you realize anyone can see your home unless you've tried to hide it on Zillow. We'll tell you how to do that and why it's so important. Continuing with us for this show, two folks who they have done a great job in the industry over at Swan Financial. In for Randy Rocky is Josh Marlin, and Josh works long hours to help you get your loans approved. He does FHA, VA, jumbo loans, low down payment loans, quick closings. You can reach Josh 270-799-3142. Also here, Chuck Crosby Law Offices. Chuck's the guy you call before things get weird. And it could happen, go sideways on the closing. That's why you want Chuck in your corner. You can reach him at 499-6360. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, I'd love to help you. No home too big or too small. Work in Louisville, surrounding counties, southern Indiana as well. And if you'd like, call me. We come out. I do. Free, no obligation. We talk about the process and come up with a plan. You can reach me on my cell phone anytime, 376-5483. That's 376 Live, or go to bobsaleslouisville.com and fill out the form and hit submit. Back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, Louisville Real Estate Show. Here with you till the top of the hour. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. And continuing with us, Josh Marlin, who's with Swan Financial. He's in for Randy Rocky, who has the day off. Mortgages, you really shouldn't need to have a decoder ring to figure out what it's all about. The nice thing about the folks at Swan, they make it easy. They explain it. They get you to the closing table. You can reach Josh anytime on his cell phone, 270-799-3142. Also here, Chuck Crosby Law Offices. Experience matters, especially in legal paperwork, and that's where Chuck shines. You can reach him at 499-6360. And you can reach me if you're thinking of selling. Love to help you. Free, no obligation analysis. I'll come out, we talk as long as you want, and come up with a game plan. You can reach me on my cell phone, 376-5483. That's 376 Live. Or go to bobsaleslouisville.com, fill out the form, and click submit. Well, you may know this. Your home is famous, folks. It's on Google in the Google Maps section. And not only can you see it, but so can stalkers and thieves. And they have access to Street View, and that allowing them virtually to view anyone's property in detail without having to risk doing it in real life. That's a problem. So blurring your home on Google Maps is a privacy measure that limits visible exterior details in the Google Street View. How do you do it? Okay, I'm going to give this to you then. If you'd like, call me. I'll send you a copy of what this is because there's a couple of steps involved here. You search your address on the Google Maps, open the maps, you enter your address, right? Okay, open the Street View, click Report a Problem. That's found in the bottom right corner. You adjust the blur area. That's a portion of the red box that hovers over your home or object. You submit the request, select Blur My Home, add details, enter an email, and then submit. Monitor updates that comes via email and review periodically. Images update every 1 to 3 years. So if you've done it in the past, you may want to check it again because it may be unblurred if you want to make it blurred. All right. A reminder, if you are thinking of selling your home, there are a lot of things you can do. A lot of people out there. I'd love to help you. Just give me a call on my cell phone, 376-5483. That's 376 live. All right, Josh over at Swan. Matthew sent us this email after his lender gave him a pre-qualification letter in about 4 minutes, and his agent told him it was basically worthless. So Matthew writes in, he says, what is the real difference between a mortgage pre-qualification and a mortgage pre-approval, and which one do buyers actually need to be taken seriously by a seller? And by the way, how long should it take for a pre-approval to get done? 4 minutes sounds a little fast, Josh.
4 minutes is definitely a quick turnaround on a mortgage pre-approval. The different or pre-qualification, the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval is the pre-approval, the lender has had a chance to review income documents, asset documents, W-2s, tax returns, pieces of identification, and they've had all those things and they've been able to see exactly what the buyer is truly pre-approved for. A pre-qualification is where a buyer has put all their information in either online or taken an application in person, and the lender just kind of takes it for at face value. So the buyer says, I make $22 an hour. I've worked here for 4 years. My bank statements, I've got, 15K in the bank. Let's get me pre-approved for a house. They're not looking, the lender's not looked at any kind of supporting documentation. That's the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval.
So how long does it typically take to have the right amount of paperwork done for this?
It depends on the buyer. I've worked with buyers that have come prepared and they've had all their documentation, and, I've gotten the pre-approval out in, 45 minutes.
Okay. So that
So,
sounds legit.
yeah,
Definitely compared to 4 minutes.
right. Yeah.
All
4 minutes. I don't know. I can't take an application in 4 minutes.
Okay.
I was going to say, it carries all the weight of a WWE referee.
Oh, all right, we're moving on. We've, by the way, produced hundreds of real estate videos packed with tips and answers. You want to see them? Easy. Go to LouisvilleHomeVideo.com. That's LouisvilleHomeVideo.com. Chuck Crosby, Chloe sent us this email. And so she read this disclosure form and she's not sure what it actually means. So she says, what does the phrase "to the seller's knowledge" on a disclosure form actually mean legally? And does it give sellers a blanket excuse to claim they didn't know about the problems? I think this is an interesting question.
No, it doesn't. It means what they knew. But in legal terminology, knowledge is what you knew or what you should have known. Just because you put a blindfold on every time you go into the basement so that you can't see the leaky walls doesn't relieve you of the liability of, disclosing that the walls are leaky. My favorite way of looking at that is if you're outside of Walmart and somebody offers to sell you brand new $1,000 speakers for $5, you knew or should have known that you're receiving stolen property. And by the way, that's how the cops are going to look at it. But yeah, no, it's just saying that you don't know, because what can you prove as to what a person knows? It's either if you knew or should have known, which really does clamp down on it a bit more.
That makes a lot of sense. Back over to Josh Marlin. Haley emailed us saying she's been told she needs to get pre-approved, but she's scared the process itself will hurt her credit score. That was an interesting question. We're dealing with a lot of approvals and pre-approvals today. Does applying for mortgage pre-approval damage your credit? And is there a smart way to shop multiple lenders without your score taking a hit every time? Josh?
So the initial pull for a mortgage is going to hit them for what I've been told, 8 to 12 points. Usually recovers in 30 days. And then they have, over the next 30 days, they can have their credit pulled for a mortgage pull, 3 to 4 more times, and it's not going to affect their credit. The federal government wants borrowers to shop around to try to make sure that they're getting the best programs, the best service, the best interest rates, the lowest fees, that sort of thing.
So you're saying it hits your credit a little bit at the very beginning and then rebounds back?
Yeah, they'll recover the points within 30 days.
Because we hear different responses from different people we talk to. So I guess at the very worst, you're only talking about a couple of points. But if you're marginal, and that could hurt then, couldn't it, if you start pulling a number of attempts at your credit score?
Yes, that's true.
All right, back over at Chuck Crosby, Crosby Law Office. David wrote in after buying a home and discovering 6 months later that the roof had a known leak at the seller's never mentioned. If the seller knowingly failed to disclose a material defect and you discover it after closing now, what legal options does the buyer have, and how long do they have to file a claim?
Well, the statute of limitations is going to be roughly a year from when you knew or should have known of the issue. Okay. 6 months on a leaky roof. It seems like you've had some leaking going on for a while. So I would think that that would have you'd have to respond in a much quicker time than say, the basement rotting out or something. But in that particular case, if you have evidence that the roof was leaking prior to, and it is misrepresentation, then there's all kinds of things you can do. You go ahead and, I always say, you got to fix the problem. You don't want it to get worse because you have to mitigate your damages. That is to say, you find the leak, you got to stop the leak. Okay, because they're not going to be, the prior folks aren't going to be responsible for any additional damage once you've found out about it. And that also gives you the baseline. It tells you how much what your damages are, is how much to fix it. I always suggest go back to the realtors, try and work it out. If that doesn't work, well, the contract has provisions as to how you should handle it. The mediation arbitration clauses, and that's usually where that kind of thing goes. It's not something that, at least using the GLAR contract, that you would just jump into court over. But with the mediation arbitration, attorneys will be involved. It just takes all the damages and turns it into a contractual issue. But there's lots of things you can do. But the first thing is fix it, mitigate the damages, and then go after that.
And have the report as to how much it cost you to fix it, right?
Always,
yeah.
Always, yeah. And you're going to have a bill with that.
Yeah.
And start collecting up how you knew that the other person knew about it. I mean, if the roof is leaking, how do you know that the other person knew about it? If it took you 6 months to figure it out, well, maybe they didn't know about it. But there's ways to tell. You get the builders up there, the roofing guys. It's usually pretty simple.
All right. Final question going over to Jason Marlin at Swan Financial. Nathan emailed this after his bank told him things would be more complicated because he runs his own landscaping business, despite having 6 years of steady income. So the question Nathan is asking, can self-employed buyers actually get a mortgage? What documents do lenders require that's different from a W-2 employee? And how do lenders calculate income for someone who writes off a lot of expenses?
Typically, what we would need is the two most recent years' tax returns, depending on how they file. If they file, a Schedule C, if they file, if they've got an S corp, and do like a K-1 pass through. I mean, there's several different ways people can file their taxes when they are self-employed. As far as it being a little more complicated, there's a little more paperwork. It's a little bit, it's not as quick and easy calculation for us as it is if someone's W-2, but there are a lot of things that you can add back in that people have written off. You can add back in depletion, you can add back in depreciation. If you have some business costs if you use your home as your office and you write some stuff off from there, you can add that back in. If you travel and you have work mileage, you can add back in at the government rate. So there's, even if you write off a lot of things, there are things that we add back in that that we use in addition to your net profit.
Because I know a lot of self-employed people are saying, well, wait, I write off a lot of expenses. That's the beauty of being an owner. I can really write those off. But you're saying you can add them back in as long as you would document them properly. Is that how I hear you're saying on this thing?
Yes. As long as they're documented and it's in their tax return, and it's a qualified write-off for us to add back in. We can't just add back in everything.
Yeah, I just heard a word that scares a lot of people. I'm just telling you the word, as long as it's in your tax return. That right, Chuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're speaking the same language. That pretty much means it's not going to get added back in because that's the reason it was taken out to begin with, not to put it on the tax return. Not that Uncle Sam is listening to any of us right now, but just to be
Oh,
very
he's
honest,
listening to you
no,
all the
I can
time.
expect my return to be audited, but not yours, folks. So thank you. I will let you know how that turns out. Josh,
I
thank you.
remember the old Wild West days when people would just come in and say, "Oh, I make 500,000." Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, the old just statement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we're out of time. My thanks to Chuck Crosby, the Crosby Law Offices. Smart advice without the legal drama. That is Chuck Crosby. And if you'd like to get in contact with him to get your loan closed or wills or estate planning, give Chuck a call, 499-6360. Our thanks to Josh Martin, who was in for Randy Rocky today over at Swan Financial. It's a very important thing to have a company that shops your loan to give you the very best rate. That's what Swan Financial does. To get a hold of Josh, give a call at 270-799-3142. Thank you guys for being here. And if you're thinking of selling your home, I'd love to help you. No home too big, no home too small. Free, no obligation. I'll come out. We'll talk, give you the process, and see if the path works for you. You can reach me on my cell phone, 376-5483. That's 376 Live. Or go to bobsellslouisville.com, click on the information, and submit. That's all you need to do. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.